Before we begin with this presentation, I would like to share with you a very special moment witnessed by those in attendance. Prior to setting up my equipment, our friend and Veritas veteran, Command Sergeant Major Robert O. Dean, made an appearance. I thought Bob was going to say his usual hello. That was not the case. Instead, per the words of one of the attendees, quote, Bob Dean honored Jim Nichols unexpectedly in great measure today by passing along his Templar sword. When knights are preparing to move on, they turn over their last two remaining possessions, their horse and sword. The horse, Bob's Cadillac, was sold, but the beautiful sword that Bob had displayed over his mantle for more than 50 years was bestowed upon Jim, a gift Jim truly is worthy of. Bob is a treasure and a courageous man, and Jim has demonstrated his mettle many times over. And Jim said, quote, passing off the sword is no small measure. I suggest you watch the movie Kingdom of Heaven to understand what a profound gesture it is. It confers both great honor and great responsibility, unquote. I was able to turn on the camera and cut the last part of this very special moment.
It's an honor for me to bestow upon a dear and good close friend this sword with my love and my respect and admiration. Jim, pull it from his scabbard. Carry that for the rest of your life and walk in the light forever, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get one more shot. Let me get one more shot with you. Get closer.
God bless you.
Thank you. And God bless you too, man. So, let's do what old Templars do best. Let's make some. If we could get the lights turned down, I have a 30-minute video I'd like to share with you today. Kind of set the tone for what we're going to talk about today. I was, in 1980, I got involved with all this crazy UFO, New Age stuff, thanks to another noble Templar who is not with us today, Wendell Stevens. Wasn't for Wendell, I wouldn't be standing up here today. I met Wendell in 1980 when he was just beginning his investigation into the Billy Meier UFO case in Switzerland. If you're not familiar with that, it's a story of a Swiss farmer who claimed to have ongoing contact with humans from the Pleiades star system. And I was so amazed at the information and the depth of Wendell's investigation that it inspired me to get involved in this field. And over the years, the Billy Meier case, if you're not familiar with it, has become one of the most controversial UFO cases on the planet. It has split the UFO community right down the middle. Its supporters are every bit as vociferous as its detractors. And to this day, we still don't have a definitive answer as to whether this case was real or not. For my own part, I tend to come down on the side that it's legitimate, that there's something happened in this case with this man that was legitimate, and at least it bore more depth of research. So anyway, over this last year, back in October, of course, you know, Wendell Stevens died in 2010. And an organization in Phoenix called Open Minds purchased Wendell's entire library, his entire archive. They honored this man. But then this last October, Open Minds turned around and published an article called Beam Ships Busted, which totally debunked the entire Billy Meier case. And without mentioning Wendell Stevens personally, it left the impression that Wendell's research was shoddy and incompetent, and at best, and at worst, that Wendell Stevens was involved with Billy Meier in creating the biggest UFO hoax in all history. And frankly, I took offense at that. And our speaker today, Jim Dilettoso, who was directly involved in the original Wendell Stevens UFO investigation, was also incensed by that article. So we're going to give Jim Dilettoso a chance to share his point of view with regard to this case. But just to get started, just to give you a little flavor of what this is all about, I'm going to show you a brief video. A lot of the people don't understand the case, and they don't understand the depth of investigative work that Wendell Stevens put into this. And in 1980, a film was produced called Contact. It was a theatrical film that was going to get released nationally, in theaters nationally, that outlined the entire investigation of the Billy Meier case. But that film, just as it was due to be released, got caught up in litigation over copyright issues. And it never reached theaters worldwide as was intended. So that leaves so much of the Billy Meier case open to conjecture. And the public has never actually gotten to see Wendell's investigation as it was originally shown in this video. So anyway, you can see the whole video online. Go to YouTube, you can watch the entire video or film called Contact, which outlines the entire investigative work that Wendell put into his investigation. But anyway, I'm going to show you some snippets of that here in the next 30 minutes and give you kind of a sense of what Wendell was trying to achieve.
Since 1975, one of the world's most controversial and perplexing UFO mysteries centers on the notorious tale from Switzerland that a man named Billy Meier claimed to have face-to-face contact with beings from the Pleiades star system. Was Edward Billy Meier actually visited by extraterrestrials, or did this one-armed night watchman, living on a government pension, riding the Swiss countryside on a tiny moped, stage the greatest UFO hoax of all time? This tale has virtually polarized the UFO research community. Its supporters are as passionate as its debunkers. And yet to this day, neither side has provided a definitive verdict to this enigma one way or the other. But the interminable wrangling continues. One of the most recent debunks was posted in October 2011 by Phoenix research group Open Minds in an article authored by Michael Schratt entitled "Beam Ships Busted." This article offered speculation as to how Meier could have faked his famous UFO photos, as though he had in fact deliberately faked his UFO photos. But considering Schratt's assertion that Meier's UFO pictures do not prove authentic, forensic computer composite images do not prove Meier's photos to be a fraud either. It should be noted that Schratt's article does not constitute a full-fledged investigation, but simply his own speculations, none of which are based on personal interviews with Meier or on-site examinations in Switzerland. As well, the subtext of this recent debunk callously implies that the original investigation from 1976 by Wendell Stevens and his team was at best shoddy and incompetent, and at worst a deliberate collaboration with Meier to perpetrate a hoax. However, a comprehensive film record of the original Wendell Stevens investigation of the Billy Meier UFO case still exists.
One of the most convincing UFO cases of all time began in January 1975 in Switzerland. The experience begins in a UFO abduction case. A Swiss farmer was taken aboard a spacecraft, articulated words with the occupants, and began an exchange of information that has continued on and is going on today, still going on today. The spacecraft flew out of the blue and landed. The occupant got out and stood in the grass and sat on the grass and talked to the man, and they had an exchange that lasted 20 minutes, and there have been 116 contacts since then. Case involved a Mr. Billy Meier. In response to his question, they said that they come from the Pleiades. They said that they are here observing humanity, that they have information, some of the information is of a scientific nature, and that he would be asked to pass it to other people. They say that they are not gods, they're not superior people, they are men just like we are men. And he's taken hundreds of photographs of the Pleiadian spacecraft operating in Swiss airspace. And this has all been checked by the computer. The computer says that this object is on the order of 20 feet in diameter and about 120 yards away. It agrees with what the witness said about the diameter. He says it's 7 meters in diameter, it's about 21 feet. He took messages, he copied notes from the Pleiadians, wrote them down, over 2,000 pages worth. Here's a book of 600 pages that I have translated into English so far, and this represents 1/4 of the notes. We have no case on record with that volume of information delivered by extraterrestrial contacts to a contactee, a UFO contactee. And the information in there is just staggering, just phenomenal. The information covers technical and scientific data as best they can explain it to us in terms of the words that we use in our technology. It gets into spiritual problems, spiritual development of man and our relationship to deity. It describes other existences in space, other human beings living in other planetary environments. They're here because they're concerned about us, their younger brothers.
This investigation was conducted by Lee and Britt Elders and their associate Tom Welch, all experts in industrial counter-espionage. This trio was recruited by Lieutenant Colonel Wendell C. Stevens, a retired United States Air Force combat pilot with 20 years UFO research experience. As well, the team was assisted by Jim Dilettoso, a professional computer expert who served a key role with digital photographic analysis. Totally independent of UFO groups of that day like APRO or MUFON, Stevens organized one of the most comprehensive UFO investigations ever engaged. Conclusions based on this team's research from 1976 to 1982 determined that 1. Digital photo examination confirmed that the images tested were in fact of a large object, 21 feet in diameter, photographed at some distance from the camera. 2. Metal samples examined revealed a process of cold fusion metal combination unknown to earthly science. 3. Examination of audio recordings of the UFO sounds conducted by a professional recording studio revealed frequencies that matched no earthly sound and could not be duplicated by recording technologies of that era. So there hangs the tale. These findings, along with an additional 30 eyewitness testimonies, seem to validate at least a portion of this contact story. Meier's claims of meetings, discussions, and travels with visitors from the Pleiades were totally subjective and virtually impossible to independently verify. Stevens' research team realized in 1980 the best they could hope to achieve was to validate the physical evidence at hand, which they did to their satisfaction. More than 3,000 pages of contact notes, transcribed by Billy, remained anecdotal and circumstantial. Short of the Pleiadians publicly landing in their beam ships, little else could ultimately prove that Billy's contact claims were true. In 1980, a motion picture detailing the original investigation by Wendell Stevens and his research team, entitled Contact, was scheduled for national theatrical distribution, but a last-minute dispute over copyright issues blocked the film from public release. However, researcher Gary Kinder retraced the Stevens investigation efforts and verified the film's conclusions, which he published in his book entitled Light Years. It is not our intent with this essay to validate Meier's claims. His story will stand or fall on its own merit over the natural course of time. However, in fairness to my friend Wendell Stevens, I think the public has a right to see his investigative efforts and determine for themselves if it was shoddy and incompetent.
Overwhelmed by the evidence they have gathered, the team meets to plan the next stage of the investigation.
We're getting it all.
We'll leave tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, on Meier. I think Meier is a very sincere and honest type person. What do you think, Steve?
Has anything changed since you were here?
The man seems to be the same, but there's some things changing around him. He's better off. He's got more people around him. More things are happening, but he still is basically sincere.
What about the psychological aspects to the man?
Do you think it's possible that he's a little schizoid? I mean, it's difficult to tell if what he's saying the Pleiadians are telling him is actually coming from them or coming from him.
Well, how do you determine that?
Well, we can never prove
Too many
that
other people
aspect
involved.
of the case.
Others have seen the same thing. There's a terrific cross-section of people here. You've got a school teacher, you've got a commercial pilot, you've got a businessman, you've got a CPA. They're as good as any average cross-section of society we've got. And they all tested him themselves to their own satisfaction before they ever got this far.
Well, I think we ought to go back and throw the book at this one. Everything we can, top technology we can get involved. I think we ought to let the chips fall where we may and just see what we find.
Here we have our image. The ground is below. We'll place this on the platen, emulsion side up, in order to focus on the emulsion.
The first step involves translating the photographic image into digital information, the language computers can read.
We can start this machine from the point which it is at now and scan 500 lines, 500 points per line, at a very small aperture, and watch the result of this scan being placed, digital information, keep in mind, onto a display. All right, over here on our display, we can observe what the densitometer is doing.
This microdensitometer is the same one used to help analyze the photos beamed back from space by the U.S. Pioneer mission.
And tell it that we want to go 5 microns between each pixel. It will be digitizing a ½ centimeter square, scanning the first lines.
The digital information will be sent on for an analysis that will take weeks to complete.
Mary, do you have that file that we had on spectrographic analysis that we did?
Oh, yeah, Tom, it's
As
right.
the investigation continues, results from the testing begin to come in to the Intercept office in Phoenix.
Hey, Lee.
Hey, Tom, what's up?
Just got this back. We sent this photograph over to Neil Davies. Just got his report back.
Neil Davis.
Physicist, aerospace industry subcontractor.
Right, okay, got it.
Examined the photograph with microdensitometer. Also, these you're seeing here are the black and white color separations that he did, and let's see what the results were here. Examination of these plots did not reveal any details which would cast doubt upon the authenticity of the photograph. And there's more. Color copy negatives, color separation. Nothing was found to indicate a hoax. And his conclusion is even more interesting. Let's see, black specks. Nothing was found in the examination of this print which could cause me to believe that the object in the photo is anything other than a large object photographed a distance from the camera.
So we're stretching the data in the edges so we can count how many pixels wide it is. And it's very interesting what happens when you stretch them out, because it becomes very clear. Pixels, these little squares, like building blocks, and pretty easy to count. So this one ranges from 5 to 7 pixels wide, this edge. So we have our range here is from 6 to 8. Now what this tells us in looking at all of the edges on the object is, first of all, that it's not a flat piece of plywood hung in the air, or it's not a pay stuff that was done. It actually has shape to it. And in this case, a very wide range, which has to do with focus. Some of the object is more in focus than other parts of the object, which tells me right off at that point that we're dealing with something of size to it.
The precise measurements and photos are fed into the computer. The edges of known objects, such as the trees and the hills, are translated into pixels. Since these measurements are known, the number of pixels in the edge of the unknown object, the craft, gives its distance. The beam ship is determined to be just where Meier said it was. Simple triangulation then gives its size, 7 meters, or about 21 feet in diameter.
Really, how many sightings?
By now, the investigators have made over a dozen trips to Switzerland. The case takes up more and more of their time and taxes their ingenuity. Each test leads to another, and every result is double and triple checked. To test the possibility that the Meier photographs were made using small-scale models suspended by transparent monofilament, the investigators bring with them a detailed model of a beam ship they identify as Variation 2. While Welsh flies the model on a hilltop above the farmhouse, Meier and Stevens snap several rolls of film. The camera Meier is using is the same one with which he took all the other pictures. The results are impressive. To the naked eye, some of the photos appear genuine.
Those photographs, they're interesting. They look pretty good. Pretty good.
I saw one difference in them, and that was that those models look white. They don't reflect that silver gleam like the pictures that Billy had.
You want to look at the focus in them, Dave?
Hi, guys. What's
Hey, Tom,
what are
hi.
you talking about?
The pictures.
Oh, yeah. Some of them looked pretty bad, but some of them look pretty good. I think we ought to test them.
Pictures of the model are not all that good. In the pictures where he focused on the model, the horizon is out of focus. Where he focused on the horizon, the model is out.
Well, not all of them, Steve. I mean, some of these photographs come out very, very good. We should put them in there for comparative testing under computer analysis. We've got to have that comparison.
So when we look at models, there's a variety of things that are different than when we look at photographs of these objects. Load in some colors first. That object right there is solid. It's one solid color. There's very little contour in it compared to other that are in the photograph, like the trees and things that we have color mapped in the background to be high contrast colors. And have blown them up so we can look at the edges as pixels. So we're going from the brown object to the horizon. It takes 2 pixels. I mean, you can count it with your finger. You don't even need a computer. There's no contour to the object. Remember when we looked at the other photographs that were taken by Meier, the width of the edges ranged from 4 to 9. Point of the story. This is a small model. It's easy to tell small models.
An area here that,
Next, Stevens takes the metal fragments to be examined under the electronic spectrometer to determine their components.
typical looking area in the sample.
Preliminary examination of the metal has been done in Switzerland.
And we've got little marker bars here that we can line up on each peak as they come up. This one indicates we have silver there. Over here, let's see. We've got some copper, small amount of copper. And that's like about all that's in here at the moment. The big band here is silver, though. The big one is silver.
Later analysis of other fragments also reveals small amounts of thulium, a rare earth element that is difficult and costly to extract here.
This is one of the...
Because of the unusual nature of the findings, the fragments are given to chemist Marcel Vogel, an expert in crystalline structures and inventor of many substances used in computer components.
The first specimen I looked at is a metal specimen, which I classified as F1. This is the appearance that it looked at, rather golden colored on one side, silvery colored here. We find that, in truth, it is silver and a small amount of copper. We look at it here, this same area here, under polarized light. What is unusual of this small specimen is both highly crystalline nature, and suddenly we come to a metal section as we see here, and it showed a combination of metals that I've not encountered in any normal bit of metallurgy, both crystalline deposits and metal. Now, we, with any technology that I know of, could not achieve this on this Earth's plane. I could not explain the type of material that I have and its discreteness by any known combination of materials. I could not put it together myself as a scientist. It's also a challenge because I showed it to one of my friends who was a metallurgist, and he shook his head. He said, I don't see how it can be put together. And we find that in this area there is evidence of machining, that there are striations which look like the sample has been worked mechanically. It doesn't look like anything that we've made here. At this moment, I would feel very much inclined to accept what was given to me as being true.
Listen here.
Wow, you recorded that here? My wife recorded this one here, and in the meantime, I've been there down very standingly with the audio recorder.
You had another recorder down there. How high was the ship above you?
About 60 meters.
60 meters. How far would you estimate it is from here down there today?
I think some 300 meters.
The sounds bear no resemblance to anything Stevens has heard before. Meier gives him both tapes for analysis. The tapes are taken to electronics consultant Niels Rognerud and sound engineer Steve Ambrose for examination.
We have two pieces of equipment. One measures the signal we're listening to in the time domain, the top one here. And the bottom one is measuring the frequency components of the signal.
Yeah, what does this mean when they're all together like that?
What you have is you have many tones happening at the same time. And right now, they're aligned. Now they're disaligning. They're out of alignment. They're very much out of alignment. Now they're starting to centralize on one. It's not as though maybe before you had 10 different frequencies at random, and then all of a sudden 9 dropped out and you only had 1 left. What's happening is the 10 different frequencies are converging on one central frequency, which is, I find, very interesting. This is probably one of the most interesting things about the tape, is that there are...
What's this right now?
Very, very many tones.
Yeah.
And they're all changing very fast. For a moment there, we were looking in and we had 3 evenly spaced frequencies. See it there again?
Yeah, you got them again.
Yeah.
Niels, would it be possible to recreate this sound?
To be honest with you, I personally don't think so. There are not synthesizers on the market that have oscillators that change that randomly. Even if you got 9 or 10 of them going, they wouldn't change from those peaks that quickly.
So a significant thing is this rate of change.
Well, and besides, if you were going to create a noise for a spaceship, you'd be hard put to come up with something as original as this. There's another alignment there.
Okay, Lee, what we can do here is...
Intrigued by the findings, Lee Elders takes the tape to Robin Shellman, who has studied the sounds of the earlier craft.
We're showing this throbbing, modulating beat that we hear on the tape. This beat, or modulation, occurs at these frequency peaks. Each one of these peaks is a discrete frequency. If you wanted to give a visual display, let's say we're talking a motor. Could be a motor, a shaft of a motor with 4 magnetic poles or coils around this shaft. The curious thing about this, it changes from 4 to 5, 6, 7, all the way up to a number that is difficult to discern. At a certain point, you're going to generate a certain amount of magnetism. And then later on, you want a stronger field, well, you're going to select 8 fields. All right, now you're going to hear 8 pulses on the tape. And then later on, you want a stronger field, you can select 16, 32.
Is there anything unusual about this?
I would think it's highly unusual. I don't really see any application for it, with the exception of, like I say, either generating a magnetic wave of some sort for laboratory purposes or maybe in this case, propulsion.
The tapes hold still another surprise.
And also, another interesting point to note here is we have a steady, there seems to be a steady pattern all throughout all of this random signal. It seems to be a level change very steadily in around 5 to 10 cycles per second, which happens to be in the area of the natural magnetic resonance of Earth, also called the Schumann resonance.
Is that significant in any way?
It could be. It's just interesting to note the correlation there.
The peculiar correlation is something strange.
I mean, why would the correlation be there?
Yeah.
You can see it on the oscilloscope.
Meier says the beam ships can ride the magnetic field of the Earth. Rognerud's findings seem to bear this out. The team had shown the Meier material to a variety of experts in an attempt to learn if any of it could be duplicated. They estimated it would require expertise in at least a dozen different fields, including metallurgy, astronomy, ancient history, and psychology. The panel concluded it would take over 10,000 man-hours and cost in excess of $1 million to duplicate the evidence Meier has. At that, the computer could still spot any fabrication.
What is genuinely amazing about Wendell's investigation was on-camera testimony from 2 aerospace engineers that agencies of this planet were engaged in developing zero-point propulsion systems comparable to those described by Meier's Pleiadian visitors.
If his story is true, How did those beings accomplish a journey of such staggering distances? The investigators put the question to Alan Holt, an astrophysicist who works with the U.S. space program, and David Froning, a specialist in spacecraft design for that program.
Gentlemen, is faster than light travel possible today in our technology, or is this still just theory?
There have been physicists that have been so bold and brave as to actually postulate the existence of particles that travel faster than the speed of light. And they have called these entities tachyons. And they have shown that the existence of such faster-than-light entities may not violate known laws of physics.
I've worked on a kind of a field theory approach, which is basically an extension. We like to view it as an extension of Einstein's last work on a unified field theory. I really think that everything is pointing to a breakthrough that will make possible faster-than-light travel. Now, not all physicists will agree with that.
How would it work?
The spacecraft, based on the propulsion concept I proposed, would use a field resonance effect to effectively jump into hyperspace, disappearing from space and time in our solar system, and then reappearing at a distant star.
At the journey's start, some distance is traveled and some time taken getting out of the solar system is shown by the curved line at the left. Then a hyperspace jump covers most of the distance with almost no lapse of time. Some time is taken again decelerating to the target, the curved line on the right.
What shape would such ships have to be to make such a trip?
I initially came up with this design, with a central circular symmetrical shape. This top figure shows a field resonance system in its space-time jump mode, where it initially rises up to a certain point, and as it rises up, as the pattern gets closer to the resonance point, the colors can change, showing the higher energy flow. And you do get an effect in this concept that is very similar to what is observed in some UFO sightings.
Okay. Dave, concerning the Pleiades, they're about 500 light years away from our planet. What would you estimate the time in this form of travel?
We're talking about on the order of 8-hour transit times between the Earth and the system such as the Pleiades star cluster.
According to Meier, the Pleiadians make the trip in something over 7 hours. Meier also says that the Pleiadian beam ship's use of the magnetic field of the Earth is something our scientists are close to being able to accomplish as well.
There are important questions vital to the Meier case that voracious UFO debunkers conveniently fail to mention, such as what agencies or corporate interests might be served by discrediting Meier and his story. What groups have the means and the motives to make claims of interstellar space travel, free energy propulsion, or contact with more advanced ET civilizations sound like ludicrous poppycock? Or could it be that the ruling elite of our world don't appreciate extraterrestrial visitors blowing the whistle on their greedy planet Earth monopoly game? Without exception, all Earth governments are made up of human beings for which power hunger and an avid thirst for profits are characteristic. They only want, under cover of peace and friendship, to occupy our ray ships, to exercise absolute rule over the Earth.
I asked free energy inventor Adam Trombley why he thought this technology was being suppressed, and if the UFO phenomenon was related.
We've had major military people at great risk to themselves say, yes, these things are real. Why do you think the military-industrial complex doesn't want that statement to be made? Because you start thinking about what kind of technology is behind that. That's the bottom line. The suppression of UFO phenomena is hand in hand with the suppression of so-called free energy.
The energy is extracted from the fabric of the space around us, which means it cannot be metered. That is a direct threat to the single largest industry in the world, energy. It's goodbye ExxonMobil, goodbye oil, goodbye coal. Goodbye linear transmission of electricity through power lines, all that gone. Unfortunately, it's someone's $200 trillion piggy bank. The proven oil and gas and coal reserves are worth north of $200 trillion. This information coming out would completely change geopolitical power more than anything since, well, in recorded human history. And it would happen in a generation.
So does the Billy Meier Enigma contain a kernel of truth, intentionally buried somewhere under layers of controversy and disinformation? The world may never know. The ultimate truth rests with the Pleiadians themselves. As they tell it, Meier's story of ET contact was never intended to be definitive, only provocative. And to this day, it remains just that.
One of the actual original investigators in Wendell's Billy Meier case, he's going to be speaking to us here today. Oh, God, he got me. I was looking right at that thing when he turned it on. With regard to Open Minds and Michael Schratt and his debunk article, the minute he posted that, the day after, I fired off a letter. Michael's had been a friend of mine for a long time, and I've admired his research into secret government military projects and aerospace projects, which seems to be his main source of, or his main center of interest. And so for him to debunk the Billy Meier case seemed a little out of a character for him. Anyway, I fired off a question to Michael right after he posted the debunk, and I asked him, was this something that that he had been researching independently, or was he had he been asked by Open Minds to write a specific debunk for their magazine? And he never answered back, so I have no idea where he's coming from on this. But anyway, we're going to take a little break here. I'm going to get Jim up here and get him set up and ready to go. And we'll let you see and listen to one of the actual original investigators in Wendell's Billy Meier case. He's going to be speaking to us here today. But the young man you saw doing the computer analysis and digital imaging was none other than Jim Dilettoso, who is a Renaissance man. He's a computer analyst, he's a computer genius, he's a man of many talents. Farmer. No, he's moving into farming. Sign of the times. Anyway, I'm going to let Jim Dilettoso step forward here and give his own personal insights into the Billy Meier UFO research. Jim Dilettoso.
Great. Thank you. My good friend. Thank you for coming. Many familiar faces, most all familiar faces. So, for the two people here that I haven't met before, I'll give you just a little synopsis of how I ended up here. Then I'm going to talk about the Billy Meier case from the point of view of the investigation, data, numbers, analysis. Then I'll talk about the perception that the Billy Meier case has had over the years. And I don't promote the Billy Meier case. I don't promote any case I ever analyze. I do measurements, I find other people that will take measurements, and then we stand by the results until we find a better way or another way to do it. So, long time ago, far, far away, in the 70s, I was in the technology rental business. I rented oscilloscopes and measurement equipment, field measurement equipment out as a business, and I also rented out tractor trailer trucks full of rock and roll sound and lighting equipment. And they seem like two different businesses, but you really do have to calibrate really loud rock and roll equipment. And you don't tour in the winter. You find other things to do, and frequently I would get involved in scientific analysis or the mining business or other things that involve some of our other equipment. And in the winter of 1978, I was involved with a man named Socrates Ballas, who was producing a film on the Shroud of Turin. It was the reinvestigation of the Shroud of Turin was happening. And we bid and won the bid to create the film interface to the iridium testing equipment. And I met a group of people. I met people from the Air Force Academy who were also working on the project. I met people from APRO, and I met people from Brooks Institute of Photography who were intimately involved in the project then, and we did our part. I met a film producer who suggested that the approach that he knew we had taken, it was John Stefanelli, could be useful for a group that he knew that wanted to analyze UFO pictures. And that was APRO from Tucson, Arizona. So we first met with Jim and Coral Lorenzen and outlined a method that I could follow to find out who the manufacturers were, who was the hardware, who was the software, who were the best users. And that would take a year or two to develop a technique that then could be applied by people interested in image processing. So we tested the first 40 images of the APRO library that was supplied to us. So I first met Bob Dean and Alan Benz and others I think are right here. And at the end of that was a request to do one particular case. And we had investigated and developed a method, but I didn't consider myself to be the skilled user. So I took on the task of introducing the investigators to other skilled users. And that's what we did for the first 2 years, was to go to the conferences, in particular the Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers, IEEE and SIGGRAPH, on behalf of APRO and the UFO Photo Archives and G3, which is the Genesis 3 group, Lee Elders and Britt Elders, who were doing security, because security was necessary because one of the pieces of equipment, one of the areas of equipment that I was certified to calibrate were optical systems related to the Cray supercomputer system. We can't just walk in and out of facilities that own a Cray. You have to have a reason to be there. It's very precise in how it is done. So Wendell brought in Lee Elders. Then we went to Jet Propulsion Laboratory, University of Arizona, U.S. Geological Survey, EG&G, TRW, IBM, Anti-Submarine Warfare Center, a number of places. To have them, provided the relationship had been properly set up in advance, which meant non-disclosure agreements, means we're not going to say that we tested the evidence there. They're not going to say that they tested the evidence there. And that went on for a full year. Usually, because somewhere the tour that we were doing, and in that era it was the Moody Blues Long Distance Voyager tour, that I would meet Wendell and Lee Elders, and we would go to a lab somewhere and do a test and run back to the hotel and then go to the show, and they'd go on their way. And we never found anyone who found any evidence of a hoax. And that's what you're really trying to do. Trying to find evidence of a hoax. You're trying to get a match. It's a hoax. It's an airplane light. It's Hale-Bopp. It's a street light. And this is a database that we had created to mimic the processes that were forensically correct, scientifically correct in the arena where we were going to do tests. We follow their protocols. We don't walk in with our own protocols. They're calibrating cruise missiles to determine if that's the moon or a basketball. Hey, I like the way they do that, okay? Let's use their method. Let's determine if this is a large object or a small object. Let's determine if it has been superimposed. Let's determine on a piece of film, and that's really what we're looking at right here. A little bit about the method, if this is interesting to you, so when you understand that detailed scientific analysis was done, that we just didn't take a test tube of blood and hold it up to the light and go, well, it looks okay to me. You have a piece of film, sprocket holes, an image plane in the center, and you're going to look at the image. But you're also going to look at the film grain. You're going to try to understand what the dynamics were when the image was exposed. And if it was superimposed. And one of the key things that is important to analyze was out in between the sprockets. Because if an image has been superimposed, it's all happening out here in the image area. So we'll get two film grain patterns that are superimposed on top of each other that we can see with a microscope and to some degree a microdensitometer. But nothing has happened out in between the sprockets. When you copy a piece of film, you're going to get the film grain from the original image and the film grain from the copy all superimposed out here, and you look out here to see if there's 1, 2, or 3 layers of image grain to determine if it has been superimposed. And there is a plethora of tests that need to be done. If it's a scale model, is it suspended by a string? The properties of the edges, the properties of light, the properties of the shadows. And it takes a long time. You can't just put in a picture and it'll run all the software. Did I mention back then that a scanner cost about $100,000 and a computer was a couple $100,000? I forgot to mention that little part. We didn't have one then. Had to go to places that had that. But essentially we were looking at it with a microscope, the standard tools, a microdensitometer, a video camera or a film camera, and using scanners, which at that time were the new kid on the block. To be able to scan film was there was only a few places to go and use one. USC and U of A were our preferred places in the late 70s. And a spectral analyzer, which sometimes can just get you in a lot of trouble using that term spectral. Astronomers think that you're doing spectral analysis like of stars. They'll say, what? Spectral analysis? No. And someone that's in film knows that the density that a spectral analyzer and a microdensitometer are important tools. Probably speaking to the choir. I mean, we're in the Image Processing and Optical Sciences Center of the universe here in Tucson, Arizona. But the image plane itself and the pictures that we were looking at, the object, the trees, the mountains, were not just the images of interest, the area of interest as it's frequently called. And that was in the late 70s and 80s. In this discussion, we go on to, I cover what we did in the 90s and what we did in 2000 and what we're doing these days and how all of it works. But let's stop for a minute, because we're really talking, before we jump into the present, about what was going on psychologically and scientifically in creating a group to analyze the Billy Meier pictures, 8mm film, sound, and metal samples. Some of the things that really fell off the radar from public scrutiny were the hair samples of the extraterrestrials that Billy Meier handed over in the cardboard box that I guess bananas had been shipped to Switzerland in. That was the box that he had the metal samples, the hair samples, and the dirt samples and all that. Here, Wendell, before you go, here's a box for you. It's a banana box. Maybe it was just us that saw the humor in that, but it had to be there. We got this banana box, wrapped in aluminum foil, came back, and we now had metals to analyze, hair to analyze, more photographs to analyze. So the approach to take was to find experts, acknowledged experts, read white papers, go to Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers, find the finest equipment that could do things, find out from them who was using that equipment, and then go to that lab. Where the hard part would happen was, how do you get those people to like you and let you use or collaborate with them to analyze these images and metal samples? Well, for those of that know him, it's Wendell. We're able to generate a charismatic force field of believability when I would accompany him, sometimes as Jim Dilettoso, sometimes as Dr. Anthony James Tose, sometimes as other names. Wendell had no business being there to calibrate Cray supercomputers in the image processing lab, so I certainly couldn't say this is Wendell Stevens. The ways that we did that to develop the collaborations, each situation was unique. It was important to get the tests done, and with the non-disclosures that happened, agreements which Lee Elders dynamically enforced that all parties would sign, there wasn't going to be any outside discussion when someone would call. So let's go back and look at some of these initials that were on here. Someone goes back and calls BN. Who is BN? BN is Bob Nathan, head of the photo lab at, let me see, it wasn't the drugstore on the corner. Where was he? Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The head of image processing and analysis at Jet Propulsion Laboratory was certainly not going to respond to someone from MUFON or Cal Corf or a newspaper writer calling up saying, "Hey, Bob, I hear you all are testing UFO pictures over there at JPL these days. What'd you find?" "Oh, no. We're not. No one's ever been here." "Well, there's these pictures here of you and Wendell Stevens and Jim Dilettoso." And, "Well, no, I just met those people in the cafeteria. They came up and talked to us in the cafeteria." And that would be the way it was placed. And the information dynamic would start. A lie has been told. MUFON publishes the list of unverifiables, allegedly reports on testing that had been done. That started a snowball. the snowball effect, that it's all fake. They're saying that they've gone to these places and they haven't gone there. Well, we had gone. And the mission was not to go and get analysis done, to take it over and put it in the MUFON journal or the APRO journal or any UFO journal. That was possibly to be done later, but it was not the mission at that moment. The MM guy, who is MM? Michael Malin. Anyone know who Michael Malin is? Who knows who Richard Hoagland is? Who's Richard Hoagland's nemesis? Michael Malin, who built and runs the Mars Observer, Mars Rover project. Mars Observer. Well, long before he was Richard Hoagland's nemesis, he was one of the people who analyzed the Billy Meier pictures, found no evidence of a hoax, believed that it was a large object at a distance from the camera, as did Bob Nathan, as did LL. Lawrence Lepley, U.S. Geological Survey, Flagstaff, Arizona. No evidence of a hoax, not a small object. Now, we'll get back to a minute how they would determine that and how the processes have evolved to be able to tell that something is a large object or it's a small object. Well, I'm not going to tease you. Let's just do it right now. Basketball is coming at me. When I talked here a couple years ago, I talked about this. Some of you may remember. Jim Nichols is going to paint a painting. And he's painting the moon. And the moon, he's got it at arm's length, and in the painting, it just happens to be that big. While he's painting, someone throws a basketball at him. And it's coming at him, and in the painting, it just happens to be that big. Here we are. Moon, basketball. What do you do to the moon and to the basketball so when you're looking at the painting, your eye and your brain believe that that's a large object, the moon, painted to be way off? This is a small object, and it's up close. Paint by number kit. Anyone ever get one of those? Aren't they great? Paint by number kit. So if you get a paint by number kit and you're going to have a basketball and the moon, in your moon, longitude and latitude segments, let's say there's 12 segments. Longitude, latitude, 12 lines. And we're going to have 12 degrees of burnt umber paint. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Because the whole basketball is really all the same color. But because of the light shining on it, it looks like it's brighter and darker shades. So when you paint in, fill in each little segment, we've got a basketball up close with 12 segments and 12 layers of paint. The moon, we're going to have 32 segments. And we're going to have 32 segments, layers, colors of paint. Would you paint that way, Jim?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, right, sometimes. Back me up, Jim. Come on, this is important. So we've got segments.
How many numbers are on?
That's right. Oh, I know, I didn't mean paint by numbers. Aren't you the guy that's the real painter?
Blow all my secrets here.
Okay, very good. Number of segments, number of shades of color. And the edges, focus. You know, in real life, everything is in focus. But our eyeballs and the lenses say, well, this is real far off, and the edges on that are a little bit fatter, or they're different inside the depth of field and beyond the depth of field. The properties of the edges change. So at Disney or at Film Effects of Hollywood Company, before they go and do forced perspective to make a little car going over a bridge that they're going to blow up, they make little cars this big, this big, this big, real cars, and photograph them and analyze them and measure the edges and test them to be able to have a real car driving down the road, drop it out, put in a small car and have it look real. To match the properties of the edges for focus, properties of motion, because there's blur, horses running, it's blurry on the back end. And these are all things that our eye and brain calculate when we see it. A painter does when they paint a painting to give it motion, to make it look larger, smaller, in focus, out of focus, moving, whatever, you decide. And that entire set of variables is turned into a set of filters that we apply to the unknown and extract it out. It's the reverse. Instead of painting it in, we're going and analyzing and saying, in this ball up here, how many segments are there in that? Can we use a series of filters that'll go through 0 is black and 256 is white, and let's look at 0 and then 1 and then 2 and filter them out one at a time and then stack them all on top of each other and look at them and say, oh, this is a small object. This is a large object. Because of the number of segments that are in it, the way that the light is distributed over a small object is different than a large object. And it's not rocket science. It is the first time that you do it, but then you repeat it over and over again. Look at the pictures and say, this is a small car, this is a bigger car, this is a real car. This is a little airplane we made, this is a bigger airplane, this is a real airplane. This is an unknown, but what we do know is that it's 20 feet in diameter. We don't know what it is. We don't know who's driving it. It's a disc-shaped thing, but it's not 30 inches in diameter. It's 20 feet in diameter. And after you've gone to 3 places, and they all say the same thing, you could kind of stop there. But we've gone to 4. And 5 and 6 places. As time went on, I decided to buy a couple of those computers myself. Might as well have them in my inventory of things that I rent out. So I had them, 2, Dianza 6400 and a Gould 9000 and a Silicon Graphics and eventually a Cray. But it's not about the analysis of the pictures to me. It's not about the hair samples so much, because there was control problems with that. It really came down to the metal samples. Who faked the pictures? You know, they have a real 20-foot model. That's what it came down to be. The accusations were that Billy Meier and his Confederates had a real 20-foot model. Okay, you can build that. The metal samples were disruptive. Scientifically, in the approach that we were taking, which was that we would go to the principal scientific publishing organizations, find the manufacturers, find the software, find the best users, go to them, have the test done, pretty straight ahead. Big object, little object. No one really ever had to go out on a limb and say, well, it's a disc-shaped object, must be extraterrestrial. Neither Bob Nathan or Lawrence Lepley or others ever said it was extraterrestrial. No evidence of a hoax, large object. When the metal samples were first analyzed, and controls were always put in. These were the samples that we got from Billy Meier. These are the silver solder samples, and these are the magnetite, and these are other samples that we put in as controls. It was very disruptive to have Marcel Vogel and later Jim Hurtak talk about the analysis that Marcel had done and Jim Hurtak had participated with him in doing, that he was finding missing secondary bands. He was finding biofringent materials, organic materials, cold rolled into high temperature materials, and essentially atomic elements 1 through 59 all in the same substance. That's really disruptive. Remember, I got to go and do that and then go back and help Alice Cooper put his makeup on. What have you been doing, Jim? I was seeing friends, restaurant down the street for 3 days. The metal sample analysis drew a line in the sand where the information was no longer going to be supplied to the UFO community or the laboratories that were doing the testing or anyone. It was kind of a chilling realization that comes over you that if it is extraterrestrial and they're dealing with this one-armed guy riding a bicycle, how do they think? What are they doing? Up to that point it became, yeah, there's pictures and there's people coming to visit here and it's bringing credibility or credence de facto, unintended by us. That was not the mission, to bring credibility to Billy Meier to talk about the mission of the Pleiadians. Their story was very interesting. I liked all of that. You know, I liked Rudolf Steiner and Madame Blavatsky and Walter Russell, and those are all the people you like to read. And I spent a lot of time with Manly P. Hall, for those of you that may know of him. The metal samples aspect changed the security, it changed my perspective. Up to that point, a lot of the bills I had been paying for the whole group. The airplane trips, and it guaranteed my position in the scientific analysis group. Airplane trips, and it guaranteed my position in the scientific analysis group. I began to feel that there were other people layers above us that were doing things. That we weren't just getting into Jet Propulsion Laboratory because of cleverness and being able to pick up the phone and call someone at Joint Strategic Target Planning in Nebraska or Special Operations Command in Florida and say, hey, I got this computer thing I want to bid on over here. Can you get us a pass to get in over here, and we're going to try out some new equipment. That's one thing. But the reality of the metal samples were that there was not just a passive, they're flying over, a guy's taking a picture. We're coming back analyzing the pictures. There's a technology involved that is so deep and is so potentially global in impact that Wendell and Lee and Britt and Tom and I would spend most of our time at that point talking about who else knows about this, really. And the little materials that are now missing from Marcel Vogel, and they're missing from MIT, and they're missing from, are they really missing? Did Marcel just say that he lost them? Or did someone really take them? At the same time, there was a lot of jealousy, infighting, lying, storytelling going on all around in the UFO ghetto. I'm sorry, the UFO community. UFO community. Outright lies. That upon the realization of that, when you see that people will just make up things and with no hesitation in proceeding and name calling and accusations, and there's no quality control. There's no one to stop them. Lee hadn't been in UFO investigations, Tom hadn't, Britt hadn't, I hadn't. And the era when the rest of the testing was getting deeper was when we began to see that Wendell was getting a little bit nervous, whether it was about the Leonard Stringfield case or it was about Jesse Marcel coming forward about Roswell, or whether it was about the Meier case, that I didn't know if we were really the qualified ones to be out taking extraterrestrial metal samples around to be tested. I mean, how did I end up being the guy to call up, to make arrangements at TRW to go there and producing rock and roll tours? Yeah, we got a lot of really fancy equipment, a lot of really expensive scientific equipment. But what else was going on? Was there an attempt to reel in all of the evidence? Was there an attempt to discredit the case? And at first we really thought that people like Walt Andrus and Cal Korff were working for intelligence community. Believe me, they're not. They're typical of mean-spirited people that make a name for themselves to be out in the UFO community and lie and make up stuff and pretend that they're part of the intelligence community so that they are somebody back at the water cooler at where they work, period. That's all those people are. But you don't know that then. You know, and sometimes I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. That's somebody's song lyric, by the way. I think Jonathan Edwards. Well, many of the labs where we had gone to do testing, such as EG&G, Wackenhut, TRW, National Reconnaissance Organization, Special Operations Command Material Center at Naval Special Weapons Center, Anti-Submarine Warfare Center, that were places that used to be my technology clients that were now my UFO clients. And was I really getting in trouble? How much trouble was I going to be discovered, and what was going to be happening? And I believe, cheers, that somebody up there was doing it all. And I don't mean in the interplanes and the mystical realms. If extraterrestrials really come here, and if there is a cover-up, small, medium, and large, the Meier case is in the thick of it. It's not like, oh yeah, the cover-up is going on over there. And the Meier case is just a thing that Cal Korff poisoned and then Michael Horn ruined. Maybe it's all the better like that. That as long as the Meier case is discredited, Billy and the Pleiadians, the PRNs, can do whatever they want to do without Billy being under a microscope. That is a benefit. Meanwhile, Billy, I perceive, like many abductees, contactees, schmabductees, wabductees, whatever flavor you want to pick, with all due respect, change their story as time goes on. They homogenize the story. They exaggerate the story. They create elements around what they're doing. And I think that's a little problem that's called human nature. Whether you've talked to the burning bush, or whether you've talked to H.W. Bush, or whether you've talked to your guiding spirit and a revelation happens, it's really hard to go back and say, I'm going to be a better person tomorrow. Watch how much better I'm going to be. It's really hard to improve yourself and to stay there. When you have a giant experience, you want to share with everybody, I think. Illustrate what happens, other people gather around you, and then the story starts being told. Now, with all the science that had been done in the Meier case, and it stopped being released at a certain point, most of the science that was ever done in the Meier case has never made it out into the media. Hasn't happened. It was a cross between the violation, the apparent violation of the non-disclosure agreements by UFO clubs, investigators calling some of the researchers to see what they had done, at the same time that the metal samples really shocked the investigators. What are they doing? What are they doing coming in their spaceship to see this guy that rides his bicycle around with one arm and giving him a banana box full, 40 pounds of metal samples, and the explanation for how they do it. The 4 stages of molecular recomposition. We never released that story. And he was very precise, very exact. And how he explained that they provided thought pictograms to him to understand how they holographically model the molecules that they want to make in a vacuum, and using a proton pump and molecular beam epitaxy, as we would call it today, model the molecules holographically as a pattern, as the substrate, to make whatever materials they want to make on demand, on command. And that the secondary bands, which are present because there's electrons being shared, are missing because they don't have to use those rules to put compounds together. They just position them. Okay, we're going to have one of these, we're going to have one of these, we're going to have one of these, and like a sewing machine, sew it together. And the detail was very elaborate. When the metal samples first came back, and we inventoried them all, separated them, put in the controls, sent them out to go be analyzed, and then the research started coming back, we spent at least 2 or 3 multi-hour meetings in creating a question set that Britt was decided would be the one who would ask Billy the questions, the further questions of, Billy, while we're here visiting this time, if you happen to run into Semyasi or one of them, could you ask him these questions for us? Please, no problem, I'll ask him, give me the list. So he either went and asked him, or he made it up. But the responses that we got back, that I then took to others to review, were kind of startled that this guy that rides around in the woods on a bicycle could explain molecular composition technologies and techniques in this level, handwritten on a notebook. That's the tail end of the metal sample chapter that set up a change in the approach of how the information was going to be released, and how we were going to go into what labs from that point on. That year, I sold the sound company to a larger company. We all merged together I didn't sell off the company. I sold it into a conglomerate that I became an officer in, and we moved into more advanced elements of image processing and image analysis and supercomputers and analysis of the metal samples. And the relationship between the investigators and Billy had deteriorated. I was not party to that. I was kind of unscathed in all of that rabble-rousing, snowball fights, I used to call it, that they had. Usually over, what's a good term I use for dumb shit? Rights, royalties, percentages of gross on the books, free books, talking about the science that had been done. I'm sure Billy didn't like it when investigators told him he couldn't talk about the results of the metal samples that he had gotten from wherever he'd gotten them. You know, supposedly them. Probably them. Them. And brought him to the investigators, had him analyzed, went back for further questions, did more analysis, talked to him about it, and say he can't talk about it. And everyone thinks that they're doing it for the right reasons. But there was no common ground in all the right reasons. There's a lot of fighting over how the case would continue. Others started joining in on the Pleiadian bandwagon. There were books coming out. By coincidence now that people were channeling the Pleiadians. And book after book, volume after volume. Whether Barbara Marciniak is really channeling the Pleiadians or not is not up to me to judge. The Pleiadians had been loosed on the world. Although the Greeks used to talk about it and the Egyptians used to talk about them, and Mohammed set aside November 17th as the Feast of the Pleiades because he thought it was important, people that came from there. Little quote that is in Photo Book Volume 1. The most important thing that happened in the investigation of the Meier case was an invisible college of about 50 image processing, metallurgical, optical scientists who became aware of the issues, not the Billy Meier case, that was just a carrier wave, became aware of the issues involved in a UFO investigation. Because if there had been a cover-up, they'd been locked out. Just because they work at JPL, they don't know anything. You know, does the director of JPL know anything? I don't know. Maybe yes, probably not. Where is the information sequestered? How is it all handled and managed? And is it even managed? Can it even be managed? Regardless of what everyone says that Billy Meier says, does anyone really know? Has anyone ever talked to Billy Meier? Do we have any quotes of what Billy Meier said? Or do we have Michael Horn says that, Helga Rohde says that, you know, Bubba Rub Dub says that Billy Meier says? I mean, isn't that what it is? Billy Meier withdrew himself upon the reality of understanding that the places where the investigation had been done were the people that the Pleiadians, the peaceful messengers of consciousness, I don't know if they would like us going into Special Operations Command to test their metal samples. But hey, it's the only place I know, you know. I don't own a testing lab, you know, you go where you go. Fortunately, many of those people became collaborators. Not on the Billy Meier case, not even in UFO investigations, but in an understanding of, if extraterrestrials really come here, aren't they in charge of the cover-up? If the extraterrestrials didn't want there to be a cover-up, there wouldn't be one. And what are they covering up? And why are they covering it up? And why are they hiding? And why are they here and they're there and they're gone and they abduct people and they kidnap them and they take them through walls and dematerialize the bodies and take them away and do strange things to them and bring them back that if I did that to you, I'd go to jail. If we did even some of these smallest things to each other, we'd go to jail. It's called kidnapping. It's not allowed. It's not dignified. Well, does the pursuit of spiritual knowledge and sharing and exchange allow that to happen, that the ends justify the means? That's where it becomes really complicated. And that's what really surfaces out of contactee cases. It's not about the photographs. It's about the metal samples. Oh no, wait a minute. It's not about the metal samples. It's about their purposes. It's about their reasons. What are they doing? What are the people doing the cover-up doing? What is the truth that affects us in the way that we live our everyday lives? I mean, isn't that why we really investigate these things? We investigate the cases to know if it's going to affect, in a minor way or a major way, our lives. If we didn't think it was going to affect our lives, we'd stop being voyeurs in this body of investigation. We would get about with things that are really important. That's what Billy Meier did. Yeah, there's a whole group around him, and he has to say, I met with Semyasi recently, and she told me this, or I met with Ptah back 10 years ago, and he told me that. But he's trying to raise his kids. And from what I see from letters from Methuselah, he's not very good at it. He's a human guy. Met with extraterrestrials. It didn't give him superpowers. It diminished his connection with the rest of the world. You know, does he wake up and go, gee, do I have to be Billy Meier today? Or can I just be Edward? He doesn't call himself Billy. He's Edward Meier. Billy's a nickname named after somebody, he had it for a little while, named after Billy the Kid. Remember the guy from Arizona in the Southwest used to go around murdering people? Billy the Kid. I don't think he likes that name anymore. So the investigation starts at a case. It becomes the science, it becomes the pictures, it becomes a whole bunch of PowerPoints and analysis and testing of the photographs and what does it mean and what do we find out, and look at all the other UFO cases we can test these days because of all the principles that we learned. Do we really want to run around testing UFO pictures all day? Let's go up on the roof in one of these skyscrapers here and take some pictures of all the cars, driving around all day, drive around, take pictures, come back, analyze them. What will we know about the people driving the cars? Nothing. Well, let's try to get in those cars and find out. And that's the Meier case. Okay, we got the photographs. But what did they say? What did they say to him? And those are the things that have become interesting to me. I didn't really read all that back then. I mean, it was all there. It was all the messages of the Pleiadians. But it became a distraction from trying to figure out how to get a particular laboratory to analyze one of the samples and look for something very precise and in particular that could have major ramifications in material science, and then the testing is done, and now it's, well, what do I do with this information? Where do I go with this? It seems crazy. From my own day-to-day perspective, whether or not extraterrestrials came here was the invitation to find things that were really relevant that the extraterrestrials might be saying about our lives. Is there anything about food, energy, life after death? Those are the cool things. If we know that extraterrestrials come here and it has no moment-to-moment relevance in our lives other than, yeah, they're here and they're covering it up, or they're covering it up, to get to something that's useful in our lives. How to make biofringent materials be cold rolled into thulium. Is that interesting to anybody? No one?
Yeah.
Oh no, two people. All right, two people.
Biofringent into cold thulium?
Yeah, cold rolled thulium. It's interesting. Yeah, we got two. Well, what about better food? Better food production? Oh, more people, more hands are going up. All right, here comes a really big one. What about the possibility that there is life after death? And that this is all part of preparing for that. Okay, not as many people as want to eat. It's okay. You know.
Some of us know.
Yes, very good. Some know. And the UFO cases that someone was contacted, were given information about bettering themselves as humans, be a better leader, be a better follower, be a better pianist, be a better farmer, a doctor, whatever. But the techniques for being better, Tony Robbins is big. You know, you can just see Patel on television, you know, beam down in a spacesuit, tell you humans how to be better. They're not doing that on a mass scale. So the complicated thing to understand isn't really, are aliens coming here or not? I mean, doesn't everyone in the room really know that extraterrestrials come here? Okay, where's the person that doesn't know? Is there one that doesn't know? Okay, that's all right. Are there two? Well, fair enough. That is part of the situation of why they haven't landed out on Congress Street, they haven't landed in Washington very many times, fly over, talk to a few people every now and then, trying to understand what is our relationship to a larger situation, and helpful information given by stochastically gathering data in a curve, building a taxonomy, a data set that says this is probably what's going on, so that we can apply it and use it, is what the investigators that have been involved in the Meier case and other cases that I've been involved with, eventually, the deeper they get into the contactee or abduction cases and evidence, the more interested they become in the potential of the human and the development of the human. Out of the Billy Meier case and the investigators, it was not about releasing further information about proving that the Billy Meier case evidence was valid. Because then you have to manage that situation from then on. It's not my job to manage this UFO case or that one. There's plenty of people that want to come in and milk them. Okay, so let them have at it. It's not my job to tell you whether or not I think Michael Horn is an asshole, you know. And you know, just sometimes that's the way people are, you know. There's a good guy there, there's a bad guy over there, there's an evil person, and then there's a whole lot of people that are out there running the UFO information truth machine that are just really greasy and wrong about it. They're carpetbaggers that grab information, buff it up to suit the truth that they want you to have, whether you're an investigator or you're the man living on the street. You know, they can get away with it. Sell you stuff, sell you vitamins, sell you a book, whatever. They got it there for you. The investigators of the evidence cases eventually turn away from the scientific analysis and go into spiritual development, personal development. Just take an example that we're not even talking about in the room here, Bruce Maccabee, who has gone over the decades from being a Navy optical scientist, dyed-in-the-wool skeptic, to being a believer and an understander, to abandoning UFO research, to talking about abduction and spiritual development and how it affects his own personal life. Kind of yawns now looking at more pictures to analyze. So, in summary, I will say that the investigation, as organized and managed by Wendell Stevens and the collaborators that were brought in, was very detailed, very scientific, and was not done for the benefit of the Billy Meier group or the benefit of the UFO groups. We stumbled into it and we did it for ourselves. I wanted to know. I wanted to know what they were doing here. I didn't want to know so I could come and give a speech about it or write a book about it. And to our satisfaction, the preponderance of evidence in that case is like probably 100 other cases that are out there. That just like the Meier case, where it was stopped from being circulated publicly, because there was nothing good that was going to come of that. Nothing good is going to come of that. If a cover-up is happening at a grand scale, lots of things can happen to your career. You may be useful later. The cover-up being done by humans in the government, humans in the military, is superseded by cover-up by the extraterrestrials. All you have to do is think about it overnight, just a little bit. Decide whether or not you think that extraterrestrials really come here or not. The Billy Meier case is one of them. If extraterrestrials do come here, that our government has more power than the extraterrestrials to keep them in place and go, we're not telling anyone that you all come here and we want you to hide out over there and don't come into our airspace. If you want to think that, that's okay. I'm not going to try to change your mind. I'm just presenting things for you to think about to develop your own thinking. I'm only talking about the things that I've been exposed to and how it has affected me. And the conclusions that I have come to from the things that I have been around from the Meier case and about 100 other cases. So I don't know if I answered your questions, or I don't know if I asked and answered my own questions today, but we can open the room now to any questions that you all might have. Thank you. Are we out of time? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
I just wanted to share something here. Some of this is revelation to me today. So
may I have my vodka, please?
Please, yes. Just to hitchhike on what Jim is telling us here today. When I first met Wendell back in 1980, he was just really getting deep into the Meier investigation. And they thought right from the get-go, when they first got the pictures from a lady named Lou Zinstag in Europe, these pictures are too good to be true, it's got to be a hoax. We'll be able to just jump right in and debunk this right from the get-go. And once we prove the pictures are a fake, then the rest of the story is nonsense, right? It didn't happen that way. The more they investigated the case, the more they were discovering, well, we can't find that the photos are faked. And so then there was like all this additional data, metal samples and so forth, that it's like the more they dug into it, the more they said, you know, we got the tiger by the tail here, and we don't quite know what to do with it. But anyway, I just wanted to, in passing, share some additional questions that the Meier case leaves unanswered. And for those who still think it's a hoax, how did a one-armed Swiss farmer stage the most elaborate hoax in all UFO history on no budget, one arm, riding around the Swiss countryside on a moped? And did Meier actually have a legitimate contact experience that over the years, like Jim suggests here, that he added to, that he embellished? He was under a lot of pressure from FIGU, from the group there in Switzerland, for more and more pictures, and more evidence, and more of the gee whiz stuff. He was under constant pressure for that. And at some point, did he cave into that? You know, I'll give you more pictures, I'll give you more stories, just to keep the myth alive. Because the FIGU is, if you understand, is something of a cottage industry for Billy. He publishes his own books, and that he markets through the FIGU, and this is an income for him. So, and he sees United States investigators making money on his story, and that was one of the things that infuriated Billy and why he broke off relations with a lot of the early investigators. Yeah, so what provoked the FIGU's the FIGU is intensely hostile toward Americans. They have published manifestos just blistering American investigators. And of course, Billy says, well, I got this from the Pleiadians, but it's like, it doesn't read like the Pleiadians, it sounds more like the FIGU. And like I mentioned earlier, would certain political or corporate agencies benefit by discrediting Meier, and specifically as a means of discrediting UFOs in a public sense? And I came across a document that was purported to be the transcript of President Reagan's ET briefing from 1981. And he was told very specifically that the CIA was using UFO cases, particularly like the Adamski case, that they were using that as disinformation to mislead the public about the whole UFO issue so they could fly their super secret aircraft with total impunity. And the public wouldn't know the difference between a UFO, a flying saucer from outer space, or one of our own secret defense projects. And the government deliberately uses UFO disinformation to further their own interests. Yeah. One of the things also I wanted to mention, and this is where my interest in the UFO thing went, especially the Billy Meier case. Randy Winters would come here, and Randy Winters was totally, deeply immersed in the whole Billy Meier contact information. Randy spent time at the compound with Billy, and Randy could go on for hours, for days, talking about the minutia of the Billy Meier story and what it was like living with the Pleiadians. And it's like after a while it just got to be totally ho-hum. It's like, well, what is it there important that the Pleiadians have to say that relates to me? Who gives a damn why it's like they got nice spaceships. After a while it's like, well, so what, you get razzle-dazzle spaceships. What do you have to share that's important to my life? And so what I went through the Meier messages and so forth, and I have a video on YouTube. It's on, if you go to UFO TV on YouTube, it's called The Pleiadian Message, which boils it down to the most succinct, simplest aspect of why they came here, which is essentially that, well, we are all one. So whether you live in the Pleiades or whether you live on planet Earth or whether you live in Tau Ceti, we are all expressions of one consciousness. And I thought, I can hang my hat on that. You know, the UFO pictures are nice, but this is something I can relate to for myself. So I certainly encourage you to check that out. The other thing that nobody ever talks about, especially the debunkers, is like, do agencies of this planet have technologies to make circular flying machines? Funny, the debunkers never ask that question. And has this technology been around as far back as World War II? Were the flying machines that George Adamski photographed back in Silver Springs, Maryland, were they really from Venus? Or is this technology that our own government has had access to ever since the Germans developed them under Adolf Hitler? There are no simple answers here, and there's so much more complexity to this whole Billy Meier thing. So when you know, if you listen to the debunkers, and they're very loud, very, very energetic, just think about all the questions that they are not asking. Okay? Now, questions, hands, and Jim, if you'll step forward, I'll have this lady ask us on the microphone.
I talk real loud.
No, this is.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Question: the book, big thick book with all the notes. Is that available somewhere, anywhere, to peruse?
I have seen them over the years.
Book collectors, $100, $300. I run into them every now and then. I was not part. Yeah.
His book of notes, that thing?
That was the unpublished. You're talking about the messages?
Or the photo book.
You showed on there, and it was like this thick. And
That's the messages, right.
Oh, the messages book. No, first was the photo book that looked like a rock and roll album, because it was originally, before it was decided that it was going to be a photo book, it was going to be a rock and roll space opera featuring Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra and John Lodge and Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues writing a space opera about a man having contact with extraterrestrials. That's why it's that shape, and that's why the little silver label directly in the center, because that was what it was originally going to be. Next came Volume 2, then came a preliminary investigation book, Volume 1, then came Messages 1, 2, and 3, published by Wendell, and there's still, all of these books that I'm mentioning now, Open Minds in Tempe, Arizona has an inventory of and sells. Then came the investigation report number 2. Then came some other messages books that I believe Michael Horn publishes. I don't have any of those. I've loaned them out over the years, the one copy of each I've had, and they never come back. It's all right.
the movie, the 30-minute video movie that we watched, and Mr. Wendell Stevens had gone from Swedish into English, that book. That's the one I asked about.
Yeah, there's a series of those. They're called Messages from the Pleiades, volumes 1, 2, and 3. I don't really sell things, but I know that Open Minds is one place. OpenMinds.tv, I think, has a bookstore online and has those.
eBay.
eBay?
Probably.
eBay, probably. I don't really read books that I'm in.
Okay, let me get this guy's question.
Okay.
I
Well-
really do have a loud voice.
Very nice, thank you.
Thank you. The little thing we had about some lights over Phoenix, they were analyzed by some experts. Could it be that you were one of those experts that got to analyze those military flares?
Right, I was in on that.
Would you expand on that a bit, please?
I focused on categorizing all the lights that were in every picture, street lights, airplane lights, unknowns, and extracting data to match them to a database that I've created over the years, kind of like a database of fingerprints. You get the unknown, extract the data, trying to match it to a known, or blood samples. So I have a variety of things from hoaxes, special effects, models, miniatures, basis of analysis, compare unknown objects to known objects. First, make database of all known factors, including making scale models. I made little cars, bigger cars, little airplanes, bigger airplanes, little UFOs. I didn't make any big UFOs. So I could measure all the data to then be able to compare to. But after we have a database of knowns, extract data from the image, the unknown, compare the data of the unknowns to knowns, just like fingerprints, and try to get a match. If I don't get a match, that means it's an unknown. Doesn't mean it's an alien spacecraft. It doesn't default to no match as an alien spacecraft. It defaults to no match as an unknown. Further studies, behavior patterns, flight characteristics, Jane's Aviation, other military contractors may eliminate the fact that it really isn't a secret airplane. If it is a secret airplane, yay for our side. You know, we have something like that. But the basis of the analysis in the Phoenix lights was that it was not flares. Forget about the fact that the Maryland National Guard under General Greg Stroud in Tucson was training, and they were on the ground at 8:30. Forget about that. Line them up. Were these lights where it could have been flares? Were the lights of the modulation fingerprint that they could have been flares? Who dropped the flares? Can you see flares at that distance? Did they drop? Did they have smoke? A whole lot of attention on were they flares? And they were not flares. Popular UFO community culture these days has it that the Phoenix lights were flares. Of course, we all hear that. In fact, even Leslie Keene now has the story that that the 10 o'clock sighting was flares. Well, they weren't flares, and the way that story has circulated is because the Maryland National Guard said that they dropped flares at 10 o'clock, reversing their earlier story that they were on the ground at 8:30, and witnesses who wanted to get back on TV. There's the TV factor, and then there's the I like you, so I like your case, I like you, so I believe your case factor. Then there's the I want to be on TV, and I'm not on TV enough, so I'm going to thumbs down them to thumbs up me so that I can get on TV. So a group of people that merely had sightings at 8:30 went to war with the 10 o'clock people. I don't know if any of you know this. But the 8:30 people were fighting with the 10 o'clock people over that.
The spectral analysis. What is the?
Excuse me.
You've been able to.
Wait, back up.
Mm-hmm.
For the sake of technology here, we have to get the questions on tape also. So bear with me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Jim. The spectral analysis of most of the analysis that you've done for the years. Is there a frequency that this spectrum exists for the unknown, and what are those frequencies?
Yeah. Spectrum analysis is a whole family of techniques. Audio analysis is called audio spectrum analysis. There's a whole family of spectrum analysis techniques. Audio is called audio spectrum analysis. Astronomers call what they do spectral analysis. There's hyperspectral analysis that uses wider than just the visible spectrum. There's color spectrum analysis. You get in trouble if you don't carry around a thesaurus and a dictionary all the time and clarify what techniques you're talking about. The color spectrum analysis techniques that I use, sometimes called a color histogram, measures the red, green, and blue content so that I can tell the difference between that light, that light, that light by their color spectrum analysis. This light's a little green, this one's a little red. Not color temperature, not degrees Kelvin, but just plain old color. It's the way that you separate and analyze different lights, the fingerprint. Then, how does that fingerprint change over time? If you just have a still picture, all you got is one RGB, that's called a sigma, S-I-G-M-A. If it changes, if you have video, and you look at 1 frame per second, there's 30 frames a second, that's 1,800 frames a minute. Look at 2 minutes of video and grab 100 frames and compare the sigma one to the next, that's called the sigma delta. How come no one's taking notes? There's going to be a test in a few minutes. All right. So the sigma delta, the change in the pattern. If we drew a graph of that light right there, color spectrum, it's dark. The graph is here. This is 0. We turn on that light. All of a sudden the graph goes bink. Now up here we got 3 graphs. How much red, how much green, and how much blue. And as they're traveling along this imaginary graph right here, that light is going to stay steady. The graph is just going to be, here's the 3, and they just stay like that. If this is a graph that's 2,000 frames long. If it's a candle or it's a flare, the brightness and the graph is going to move up and down because it's getting bigger, it's getting smaller, it's getting brighter. It's a candle, it's a flame, it's a flare. Its delta is that it's modulating, it's changing. On the Phoenix lights, when compared to all the other lights in the image, not airplanes, not Hale-Bopp, which was what's going on that night, and controls that we did with sodium flares, magnesium flares, went to a flares manufacturer, had a CIA flares consultant named Byers, whatever his name was, come in and review them for us. We spent a lot of attention on whether or not these were flares. They're not flares. The techniques of spectrum analysis were color spectrum analysis and hyperspectrum analysis were kind of guarded back in the 90s. There were even some papers that were written talking about my charlatan methods of claiming spectrum analysis. The coincidence is that the FBI laboratory in the Journal of Standards in the Forensic Science Communication now publishes these standards for image processing and optical analysis, and I'll get to it right out of their documents. Papers published. For those of you interested, we love white papers. We love Elsevier and Science Direct. For any of you that ever go there. Here's an example of doing PGA, photogrammetric analysis on 33 objects, and we want to classify those. We want to give each one of those a number of its red, green, and blue content for every pixel in the 100 by 100. So this is object, let's say that's object 1, A, let's go from the bottom, A1, A2. So every single one of these, this is 100 by 100. Every single one of these is going to have red, green, and blue, red 0 to 256, green 0 to 256, etc. Brightness value, sometimes color saturation, brightness value, and is also going to find the object. It's going to do a data for every single pixel, is going to identify the outer extremities of the object. We don't know if it's out of focus, if it's a blur, if it's on fire. The computer doesn't know. It's just grabbing information to create a shape. Like that shape is different than that shape. But where is the real edge of that shape? You know, is it there or is it out there? What about this one? So there's various layers of classifying shape and shape over time, and the color content of each shape to be able to build a database, to be able to compare to and say, well, this light is a light just like that, or I don't know what it is, but this isn't a steady light, this is something on fire. Let's go back and look at it further. Histogram, light properties, brightness, color composition, pixel count, the contour. The contour, is it a ball or is it a disc? Is it a marble or is it a dime? To be able to look at the contour. Oh yeah, there it is, the world famous sigma delta. There's an example of the red, green, and blue content. Red, green, and blue content, 0 to 256. Our database of F16, lights, afterburner, flares, Hale-Bopp. Did you see the difference of what I'm talking about? Red, green, blue. And that's for one frame. There's a mean, a deviation, and an axis minimum and maximum that become indices, become index numbers that can be record locators. There's other data that can be used for that, but the key thing is not the snapshot of one frame to know if it's a flare. It's to look at it over a series of frames and see if these change. They go up or down. Do they get brighter? Does it flare up on the outer edges? And there's all kinds of things that can happen to flares. Yes? Okay.
Real quick.
Yes.
So my other question is there any way of reproducing those type of images through CGI?
Oh yeah, sure.
But can
Yeah.
it be detected?
Yeah. It depends on if you know what package of CGI is being used. They each have their own signature. 3D Studio Max and Maya and ray tracing, various rendering packages, all have their own characteristics. And you can build in aberrations, you know, so that it's not so perfect like a synthesizer, that there's no, that's a perfect saxophone, but a human doesn't play it like that. You do that kind of analysis by converting all the images into a pattern recognition domain called Fourier transforms, or FFTs, which is my favorite zone to move everything over into and to do Fourier series analysis. I'm telling you, there's going to be a test later. No one's taking notes.
Sorry, no.
That's quite all right. You can't say, well, just go look for patterns and tell me. You got to say, I'm looking for a pattern like this, is it in there? Looking for a pattern like this, is it in there? Is there a screen? Is there a grid? Is there a mist? Is there smoke? Has it been superimposed? But CGI in a computer, when it's output, the video signal itself, separate of the image, has other data capture points that are related to the way the signal is put together, and that's called the time base. That's the vertical interval, that's the blanking pulse, that's the porch, that's the pedestal, that's the thing that a television station engineer looks at that's kind of in between the frames. The picture is one thing, that's color, that's contrast, that's grain, it's stable, how black is the black, IRE black, etc. But if something has been generated by computer, the Genlock vertical interval signal is real stable. And there is head switching that happens even in digital editing that we can look at and say this was shot on high 8 or digital 8, transferred into the computer, Genlocked and superimposed, and output back to Betacam SP. Can tell that, because they all have their own IRE, black level, and head switching that they do. And it's all very time consuming, and there's no one to pay us to do it, so I'm really foolish to do this all the time.
Jim, we've got like 10 minutes.
We're running out of time, okay. Yes, sir.
Wait a minute. Hold it. Deep breath, deep breath.
For those of you interested, this is my daughter Savannah, who is so patiently sitting over here. The love of my life, 12 years old. She goes to the Stephen Covey Leadership Academy in Phoenix, Arizona, Glendale, one of 3 in the United States Stephen Covey schools, and she's a top performer there at school. And a musician and an artist, and she's embarrassed now. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Steven Spielberg couldn't fool you with something if he really
Yeah, they could. I wouldn't, if somebody would, I don't do this by myself. When I get something, I have collaborators I send out the images to look at. If someone wanted to be fooled, I can be fooled. Generally not, though. Think of it as, it's not like fooling fingerprints. It's like fooling blood analysis and pathology. The more information I have and the more time I spend on it, the more precise I can be in what it is. But if someone wants to make a large object and fly it around out there, all I can say is it's a large object. If they're going to superimpose it or do compositing or CGI, I can definitely tell that.
For all the money he would spend, someone would blow this one.
Yeah.
Jim,
Hi.
you said something early on that I needed some clarity on. I think you kind of got into it with the pixelation and stuff, but you talk about no contour in the model as opposed to the craft. And I didn't really quite grasp why there would be...
No, there's different. The contour is different. The amount of contour.
Okay, you said no contour.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had that question. But you know what I really want to know? It sounds like you might be able to answer it. Who the hell put Greer in the Disclosure Project in front of Congress the day before 9/11?
I'm not part of his posse. But thanks for pointing that out. I pretty much am on my own. I have many different groups that I work with, but I'm a team player on demand. But I don't have a group that I run around with, and I'm pretty opinionated and outspoken. Otherwise, I'm shy and quiet. Yeah.
You asked me a question. Jim?
I have a question for you. Have you studied the secondary moon sighting off Australia?
I have not.
Can you repeat the question?
Down in Australia, many people have spotted another moon.
Yes.
What?
A little moon in front of the sun. I've looked at the pictures. I haven't analyzed them. I don't have enough material to analyze.
Was Billy Meier ever tested, muscle tested using kinesiology to see?
No, that would have been good. We did do PSE, psychological stress evaluation, on him though, and polygraph. I use neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and psychological stress evaluation whenever possible in both my day job and in this realm.
When they asked Billy
He's a
Meier
truth teller.
if he had had contact with extraterrestrials on the lie detector test, he
Yes.
passed that one without any problem.
Yes.
When they asked him if he drank coffee, he showed much higher stress levels on do you drink coffee or not.
He'd been sneaking, drinking coffee. He told his wife he had quit and he was sneaking. So he flunked that question, which the examiner thought was a control question.
Right.
Jim, what were during the investigation period of the Meier case where you were involved with the elders and Welch and Colonel Stevens, what was your biggest moment of doubt during that period, and what was your biggest moment of, say, exuberance or jubilation? Like, what were the extremes for you during that investigation and your analysis?
The biggest moment of doubt was when I had brought some new pictures to analyze and a film crew in tow with them at the same time. And I was to analyze the pictures and then give their results. And that night, I was still doing analysis. They left the cameras, crew went home, and I knew that they were small models. I didn't know, they had tricked me. They didn't tell me they were small models. They just told me, there's the new pictures. So I had made the determination that they were models, and I was rehearsing my speech, my way I was going to tell them the following day. I can decide whether prior to cameras running or wait till cameras are running, to tell them that these are models. These are models. I had new software, and I showed that they were models. So that was my my biggest doubt, which did a great reversal when I told them that they were models, and the crew and everyone was, yay! You know, that I could find models and that I would actually say what I thought.
If I could just hitchhike on that.
The 2-foot model under your analysis would be completely in focus, correct?
Yes, would be completely in focus.
Completely in focus. But
and the amount of light contour on the top,
right,
it would light up a larger percentage, a ratio of the top, than a large object.
So, but using the same photographic process or equipment, a 21-foot model would not be completely in focus like a 2-foot model.
Depends on how close you are. Yeah, the edges will be different.
Right.
The edges will be different. Which is why I think that one with all the balls on it is the top off of a Type 4 undocked. I don't think that's a 20-foot thing flying around. Mm-hmm. I think that's a 4-foot thing flying around because it has the same ball configuration as the Type 4 craft. Because when you look at it, you go, well, that's a little thing. Well, yeah, it's a little thing, and as Billy had explained, it can undock from the top and fly around on its own. It's a monitoring device.
And so your high moment?
Your
high moment? Yeah. I was barefoot on the type rope, no net. They have me do a backflip through a hoop and set the rope on fire as we're reading the reports that there's atomic elements 1 through 59 all in the same substance. And let's give this report at the UFO conference next week. Whoa! Jim, you be the spokesman. I said, no. It was a high point, but it wasn't a point of exhilaration. Pertaining to the Pleiades, I think the high point of exhilaration was Lawrence Kennedy telling me I was from the Pleiades and teaching me how to bend fireplace pokers.
Sure.
That was pretty cool. Here in Tucson.
Quick. 2 minutes.
In all your photo analysis, did anybody else besides Billy Meier give you pictures of what looked like Pleiadian craft that weren't taken by Billy Meier's? Because the Bob Lazar case always talk about that case. And I always wonder if we, because my mother worked for NASA, my uncle worked for NASA, if we really don't have a breakaway civilization right here on this planet, and they're tricking us, and they want us to think all kinds of other things with this information. So I know that doesn't have to do with analyzing photos, but
Yeah.
I respect your opinion. Very
Well, I did get a couple of photos from Bob Lazar. I met him early on with Dennis Weaver's partner, Paul Shepard, and John Lear. We went to visit him. And he gave me a couple pictures, and they look just like the Type 2 Billy Meier craft that's on lots of people's business cards even these days. The thing about the Lazar images is that they're always in the same parallax perspective. We always see it from the same angle, like it's a photograph that's been borrowed from another place and superimposed. And there is not enough light on it for me to conduct a valid test. But Bob didn't pass the NLP test for me. I believe that he's telling part truth, but that he's added a whole lot of other things. And I'm not for or against the guy. I just say what I see. And, that guy in Florida that had Billy Meier type images, they were never given to me. They were given to Sean Morton and given to me. I've seen a number of craft that look like the Pleiadian craft, but likewise I see a number of Pleiadian craft on people's posters, business cards, and letterhead. So the Billy Meier case are the only pictures where I've had from different angles, underneath, top, side, view, to look at all 4 stages of that craft. Timed out. Time perfect. Well, thank you all for having me, and thanks, Jim, for having me here. I hope I made a long story interesting.
Okay, thanks everybody so much. Have we got the lights in the back, please? We have to be out of here very shortly, so if you will. Great crowd. Thank you so much for joining us. And just bear with us. We have a lot of equipment to get out of here. So, all right. Thank you again so much. And we'll be in touch with you for the next Quantum Horizons get together. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Analysis of all these.